I want to welcome you to the first edition of my new video series called the Friday Morning Tennis Rant. Some of you might be familiar with my Monday Morning Tennis Rant series of videos, and the reason why I made these videos on a Monday, because whether it's a local club championship or a Grand Slam tournament, the finals are supposed to be on a Sunday. Why? Because on a Sunday, people usually don't have to work, and this is where you're going to get the most attention for a tennis match. So could someone explain to me in the comments why the WTA 1000 final in Montreal and the ATP Masters 1000 final in Toronto were held on a Thursday? It makes absolutely no sense. In my last Monday morning rant, I was wondering how this tournament can go on for another week because we were already in the quarters on Monday. And I had no idea that this tournament was going to finish on Thursday. It makes absolutely no sense. And from a business standpoint, I think the viewership would have been bigger if those finals took place on a Sunday. Now, I've read that the reason for this final was to give players more rest in between these two tournaments. And first of all, a lot of the top players pulled out of the Toronto tournament, which I think is going to be something that's going to happen more frequently if these Master Series tournaments continue to go on for 2 weeks. But also, think about it this way. The next big tournament is in Cincinnati, and the big players don't have to play until Wednesday or Thursday. What is the point of holding these finals on a Thursday? It makes absolutely no sense. See, I thought they were going to improve the tennis calendar and not make it worse. And it's kind of a shame because both of these tournaments were so entertaining to watch. And let's start with the men's tournament in Toronto. It was so interesting because the superstars were absent from this tournament, and it was up to the players that were ranked right behind the superstars to take this title. And the three guys that I had in mind prior to the tournament starting were Zverev, Shelton, and Fritz to take this title. And I thought that Zverev had a golden opportunity to add another Masters 1000 title to his big collection, and he surely had an opportunity to clinch the match against Khachanov, in which I thought both players played well. I think Zverev played well in this tournament. Not his best tennis, but he looked motivated to take this title. But unfortunately for Zverev, he found himself up a match point, 6-5 in the third set on the Khachanov serve. And on a second serve return, which was a kicker that didn't look that fast, it was a comfortable return, Zverev missed a backhand return into the net. Now, it wasn't a bad miss. He missed it right at the top of the net. So a very frustrating mistake, but credit to Khachanov, who played a phenomenal tiebreak and overall played a fantastic tournament. He's a player that's very much under the radar, and it was nice to see him make the final. But the reason why I'm saying that Zverev blew a chance, because I thought that if Fritz could have beaten Shelton, he would have had the advantage against Zverev in the final because he won 5 straight against Zverev. But Zverev facing Shelton in the final would have been an advantage for Zverev because he is 3-0 against Shelton. But I gotta tell you, Ben Shelton stepped up. He is improving. If we take Djokovic out of the equation, who just pulled out of Cincinnati, I'm not sure if he's going to play the US Open. It looks like he is, but it is for sure unusual for him to not play any tournaments prior to the US Open. So let's take him out of the equation. You could make the argument that Ben Shelton has the potential to be the third best player in the world. He played a phenomenal match against Taylor Fritz, who was very upset for losing this match. And Taylor, after double faulting on match point, he snapped his racket on his knee. And I just want to mention something that's been on my mind in all these years. And Taylor Fritz is not the first guy to snap his racket on his leg. Wawrinka has done it many times. And every time I see these guys snap a racket like that, it looks like they're snapping a toothpick. And I just want to tell you, I've tried this on an old racket that was already cracked, and I couldn't do it. So it looks easy to do, but it's unbelievably difficult to snap a racket like that on your knee. And it's not something that I recommend. You shouldn't break your racket in the first place, but by no means should you try to break it over your own body, because as easy as these guys make it look, it is unbelievably difficult to snap a graphite racket. So Taylor Fritz, a very strong guy, but he had an opportunity to take this title and he couldn't. And Like I said in my last Monday morning rant, Taylor, after a very good Wimbledon tournament, hasn't played his best tennis. He's won a lot of matches both in Washington and in Toronto, but he was not near his top. But you have to give Ben Shelton credit because, like I said before, he is improving. Ben has always had an unbelievable serve, but what I'm seeing now from Ben is also an improved baseline game, and more specifically, an improved backhand from the baseline. So in the final against Khachanov, Ben's backhand was being attacked. Khachanov was hitting a lot of balls to the Shelton backhand, and it was not falling apart. It was not only steady, but he was also able to hit quite a few winners from the backhand side. Khachanov found himself up a break. He was serving for the first set. He lost the serve, and then Ben Shelton had set points at 6-5, 15-40 in the first set on the Khachanov serve. He couldn't convert those, and he had another set point in that same game. He couldn't convert that one either. And we got into a tiebreak in which Shelton went up 3-1, but then Khachanov started playing some really solid tennis and ended up winning this tiebreak and getting the first set. Now, in the second set, at 2-all, 15-all, there was a serve that hit the net cord and it went way wide, but there was no call from the automatic line calling system. Then on the next serve, Khachanov hit a serve about this wide and there was no call. And now players had to wait for the umpire to figure out how to proceed in this match. But Ben showed great sportsmanship and gave Khachanov a first serve and they continued to play. People online were saying that this was the momentum shift in the match, but I disagree because Khachanov was playing well deep into that second set. He didn't get broken in that game at 2-all. And Ben Shelton broke late in that second set, which he won 6-4. But this set was tight. Khachanov played well, but it was more Shelton who stepped up his game, was playing more aggressive and more solid in the most important stages. And he ended up winning it 6-4. Now in the third set, there were no breaks and not even a break chance or any service gain going over deuce. And in the tiebreak, Ben Shelton was the most courageous player. There was one return at 5-2 Shelton that he absolutely clobbered down the line for a winner. On his first match point, he again tried to hit a return very hard, and he could do that because he had 4 match points at that point, and he missed that return, but then played a very solid point and won his first Masters 1000 title. What I'm seeing now from Shelton, apart from an improved backhand, I'm seeing improvements on the return for sure. He's returning better now than he was in the last couple of seasons. And also, there's more versatility in his game. On a few occasions, he did the drop shot lob combo on the backhand side. He also has very good touch on his volleys. And generally, the drop shots from the baseline are quite good. So his touch is improving. His defensive skills are improving. One shot that is so spectacular to watch is that curler forehand that he hits down the line that kind of curves in, reminiscent of Rafa Nadal. That shot is fun to watch, and Ben was hitting a ton of those during this tournament. And of course, most importantly, the Ben Shelton serve is absolutely humongous. But as I've said many times before, if Ben Shelton wants to challenge Sinner and Alcaraz at the most important tournaments, and especially in a best-of-5 match, he has to serve differently. He still gets broken too much and gets into rallies too much. And despite that, he still might reach number 3 in the world. But to be able to beat the top 2 guys at the most important stages, he is going to be at a huge disadvantage from the baseline. Because as I was watching the Shelton-Khachanov match, I saw a clip of Sinner practicing at Cincinnati, and I already forgotten how lethal the Sinner ground strokes are because we haven't seen him play in a while. But the way this guy plays from the baseline is out of this world. As good as Ben Shelton is from the baseline, as athletic as he is, Sinner is simply on another level. Not only compared to Shelton, but pretty much compared to anyone except Alcaraz. So Fritz showed improvements in his semifinal match against Alcaraz, no doubt about it. Hasn't found his best tennis yet in this hardcore swing, but he might in Cincinnati. And Shelton is showing huge improvements in his game. So I think it's these 2 guys who are going to have a chance to do something big at the US Open. But again, to go all the way and to take a title, if they have to go through Alcaraz and especially Sinner on hard court, they're going to have to improve even more. And in Ben Shelton's case, the only way he can challenge Sinner is if he plays a very high-risk game, especially on his own service game, but also on his return game. Let's talk about the WTA 1000 final in Montreal. And before I talk about the match, I want to first acknowledge Rybakina, who's playing a lot better as of late. But she's had so many matches that were on her racket where she was up a break in the third or had match points, and some of them she had multiple match points. One match that I remember vividly was the Berlin match against Sabalenka, where she had 4 consecutive match points in the third set tiebreak. So Rybakina is playing well, but she's missing that little bit of confidence to close out some of these big matches. I still believe that the big four of the WTA are Rybakina, Gauff, Swiatek, and Sabalenka. Those are, in my opinion, the best players, but Rybakina is ranked 10th right now, and she's looking to get back to that level, but I do believe that she's very close. And again, she had match points against Mboko in the semifinal, but I have to say something about one particular match point that Mboko saved, and that was on the return of serve. And quite frankly, it reminded me of Djokovic saving match points against Federer at the US Open many years ago in the 5th set. And Mboko absolutely clobbered the first serve of Rybakina and made her return and saved match point and went on to win this match. Throughout this whole week, Mboko has been playing fearless tennis. And of course, the home crowd supported her a lot. But this can also put a lot of pressure on a young player to be able to perform in front of the home crowd. Of course, in the final, the pressure is going to be enormous. And I do believe that Mboko felt the pressure, and she couldn't find her best tennis until the third set of the final. She wasn't playing anywhere near the level that she displayed making it to the final. Also, her wrist was bandaged, and that could explain some of the second serve issues that she has had. But I need to point this out. For Osaka to show such negative body language when she was up a set is truly incomprehensible. It makes no sense to do this for any player, but especially not someone that has won 4 Grand Slam titles. From a mental standpoint, the way Osaka behaved in this match, quite frankly, reminded me of a junior tennis player. And I know this sounds harsh, but it makes no sense that Osaka would be so negative when she had the match in her hands, winning the first set 6-2, and Mboko not playing her best tennis, and Osaka, on the other hand, playing a very solid first set. And after this first set, Osaka only held her serve one time. And in the very first game, she started displaying very negative body language. And it's just a great lesson for everyone that you can take yourself out of a match by being too negative for no reason whatsoever. And look, of course, all of this is easier said than done. We're going to get negative on a court, independent of level. But what differentiates the best players from the rest of us is that they might get negative, but they find their best tennis on the very next point. But that surely wasn't the case for Osaka in this match, because Victoria Mboko was struggling in the second set. Yes, she started playing better from the back of the court, but she committed 9 double faults, and she was giving Naomi Osaka a lot of opportunities to win this match in straight sets, but Osaka simply could not hold serve. For sure, Mboko has a great return, but Osaka is in the top 5 on the WTA Tour in aces this year. So for her not to be able to close out this final despite the 9 double faults from Mboko, who again had something going on with her wrist, Osaka should have won this match. And when she looks back at it, there are a lot of lessons to learn from this one. Now in the third set, Mboko started showing her qualities on the serve and delivered several aces in clutch situations. She played a lot better, and Osaka didn't have much of a chance, losing this final set 6-1. But towards the very end of the match, again, very negative body language from Osaka. It almost looked like she was tanking. She wanted to get off the court as quickly as possible in that last game. And this is not something that you want to see from a great champion at this stage. Now, there's another twist to this story. And Victoria Mboko said that Naomi Osaka was her idol. So to behave like this, where you're almost tanking at the end of the match and you're incredibly negative and you're rushing between points, to behave like that against someone who idolizes you is not cool. And to make things worse, Osaka didn't even congratulate her opponent in the trophy presentation. And as I said, Mboko idolized her. Now, to be fair to Naomi, she did acknowledge in the post-match press conference that she forgot to congratulate her opponent. So I was critical of Sabalenka's speech after losing to Gauff and Roland Garros, and I have to be critical of Osaka's speech. And it is clear that despite a great tournament from Osaka, she's not the same player that she once was. She's ranked number 25 in the world. Interestingly, Mboko is ranked 24, just one spot ahead of Osaka in the new rankings. That's an absolutely insane jump, because the first time I talked about Mboko during the tournament in Rome, she wasn't even in the top 100, where she took a set off of Coco Gauff. But back to Osaka, the rankings don't lie, and she's not as good as she once was. She is for sure mentally not as good. Now, she is still an incredible ball striker, and even in this match, she hit a lot of winners. She can blow opponents off the court. She has a big serve, and she's also a phenomenal athlete. Back in 2018, she destroyed Serena Williams twice. First, it was in the first round of Miami, 2-3, after she had won Indian Wells, and then she beat Serena 2-4 in the US Open final later that year. And when I compare Osaka now to 2018, and of course Osaka won 3 more slams after winning that US Open, she's still a shot maker, and she hits the ball unbelievably hard, and like I said, she can put a lot of pressure on the opponent, but mentally she's not the same player and doesn't play with the same confidence. We can see that on her body language. But there's something else. See, Mboko is somewhat similar to Osaka back in 2018. She is an incredible shot maker. She has unbelievable pop on her serve, and from the baseline she can create very effortless power and hit winners at will. And what I noticed in this match, and also in some of the other Osaka matches, is that her movements are not as fast as they used to be. And it's not her technique that's letting her down. Her technique is the same that it was in 2018, where she beat the GOAT twice in straight sets. But it's rather her reaction time that's slower. And for that reason, she is more late on her ground strokes, because in this final, Mboko was overpowering Osaka. So in my opinion, it's a combination of her mental game not being as good as it once was, but also I do believe that she doesn't move as quickly as she used to. But the good news is that Osaka had a lot of consecutive wins in this tournament. Her ranking is going up, and she can build upon this tournament. Hopefully she can forget this final quickly, and if she continues to improve her game by getting a little bit quicker, she's gonna grow her confidence, because she's gonna continue to win more and more, and she can work her way into being a contender for the biggest titles again. I do not believe what's been written on the internet after this final, that Osaka is done with tennis. Listen, she made it to a final of a WTA 1000. This wasn't the first round of the tournament, and Osaka has been winning more matches this year. And also Osaka almost took out Iga Swiatek at Roland Garros last year on clay. So she still has it. It's just a matter of getting a little bit quicker and getting her confidence back up. Now regarding Mboko, we've seen this many times on the WTA Tour. A young player winning a big title and then cooling off a little bit. So we don't know what's going to happen, but I do think that Mboko has a game that's incredibly dangerous, and she can put a lot of pressure on the opponent.